All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the Q&A, and now we're on the giant, obnoxiously giant screen version of the Q&A, hopefully to give you guys some better answers. So these are questions that I gathered from Instagram at first, so I literally am like screenshotting them, put them right up here, picking one of the ones that I kind of had similar questions about, and then after you watch this video and you do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, follow, share with your mom, all that good stuff, then put your questions down in the comments below and we'll keep this thing rolling. How would you train abs? Should you use weight? Best exercises for abs. I got a video here, so let's see how the video goes. There's me. So here's the answer to your question. Should you use weight? Yes. Here's the best exercise. What is it? Let's see if I pause it somewhere. All right, I'm gonna pause the video. We can do it. Pause. All right. So the short answer, if anybody's wanna watch past this is an ab mat. I don't sell them. This is some really crappy brand that's name is Synergy with 2 E's. I don't know what that's all about, but I got it on Amazon. Go to Amazon, type in ab mat, and then whatever company you send it. No, if you go to Amazon and you buy it from some company, just mail me $1 for like a referral. Is that how referrals work? I don't know. Just mail me $1. But anyway, so just go to Amazon, type in ab mat, buy a cheap one because it doesn't matter. Just make sure it's a material that's not squishy, and make sure you don't spend more than 25 bucks. Otherwise, someone's trying to sell you some bullshit. But why is that the only thing that you need? We'll draw a picture over here because that's what you guys are really here for. Here is your pelvis. We'll draw it. We've got 3 pelvises. They'll probably get progressively ugly. This is all the same pelvis. What do you have as far as range of motion is concerned? So let's call this the middle. We'll just call it straight. I know that your lumbar spine isn't really straight. Here's your ribs up top here. So what do we have? I've already kind of messed myself up going into the lengthened position. But so we have this. This is those fully lengthened. So here's me in the middle. Yes, I understand that there's basically a little bit of arch anyway, but if I fully lengthen, what is the muscle? Origin insertion. We've got some ribs up here that I'm not gonna draw the rest of, but they go from the top of your pelvis to the bottom of your ribs. That's basically a fully lengthened rectus abdominis. That's your 6-pack. And on this side, what do we have here? Here's your ribs. We'll draw them this way. This is anatomically perfectly correct, but those same 2 points. How do we train muscles? We have a range of motion. They go from lengthened to kind of in the middle somewhere to shortened. That's your only option. Why an ab mat? You could do normal crunches and you could get to this position just fine, that fully shortened position. But like we know with all muscles, that mid to lengthened range is money. So you get a pad and you can take those muscles on most people about as far apart as the origin insertion can go. For rectus abdominis, those are your only options. There's nothing else that you can do. There's no more range of motion to have. Someone's like, but I can rotate and I can twist and I can move my legs. Well, guess what? Your legs don't attach to your abs anywhere. Your legs are down here. So leg movement, someone's like, oh, but my legs, I feel it in my abs when I move my legs. Yes, because as you move these legs, they move your hips or change where the weight distribution is actually on your pelvis. So the thing that's holding your pelvis still or not still can feel that. But again, your abs don't move your legs. So what are your options here? Again, if we want to twist, I was saying twisty stuff. Twisty stuff isn't rectus abdominis. So you have obliques, you have maybe some bendy stuff, QL. But again, as far as rectus abdominis, as far as the 6-pack goes, that's your options as far as range of motion. So why is this my favorite? My favorite, like I just gave you the secret, it's on Amazon. It's cheap. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's the cheapest, best piece of equipment. What does it allow? The alignment's perfect. It trains to the full range of motion. If you need to load it, the same as any people say, do I use weights? Well, look at your abs. Do you want them bigger? If you're looking at your abs, go on, lift your shirt up and look at your abs. Are you crying right now? It's just hairy. There's some Cheetos in the way. You can't see them. If you can't see them, one, put down the Cheetos, because that's the only options for abs are the same as every other muscle. Get rid of fat so you can see them, and then make them bigger, right? So most people need both. If you want better looking abs, I've pretty much never seen anyone that couldn't benefit from both. Now, obviously, you don't have to be 6% year round, but just realize, obviously, if you have so much fat that you can't see them at all and you want to see them, obviously lose some body fat. But we're talking about building muscle. So yes, if you want them bigger, load them. And why am I showing this exercise again? Because what's the other equipment requirement? Plates. So it's pretty much a perfect exercise on paper. It overloads the lengthen through the mid-range with where you're putting those plates, because as you come closer to the top and those plates move closer to the axis, which is all those points on your spine, it technically gets less joint torque in the muscle and lighter. So low-hanging fruit, only point of entry is this cheap piece of equipment. Pretty much every gym in the world has a weight. If you don't have weights, just grab a small child, same thing. And you don't need cable, you don't need machine, you don't need whatever. Now, this isn't me saying that there's not other good ab exercises. Is a rope crunch fine? Yeah, it's pretty good. Is a machine crunch fine? Yeah, it's pretty good. Can you do stuff where you're moving the other end? So this is moving ribs towards your pelvis. Can you move pelvis towards your ribs? Does that change the stimulus? Maybe some slight difference. Can you do this biasing the one part of a muscle over the other? Probably not enough to make a visible difference. So again, if you want to do the other ones, fine. But I tend to find too, even for those other ones like rope crunches and things like that, as soon as you take a pad off of your lower back, it actually will decrease your output or limit how much weight you can do. So this one, there's essentially no limit on the weight that you can do. The only issue that you could have is if you don't have big legs like me. Look at those. Look at that hamstring there. Look at that quad. Glorious. Let's just take a moment and admire. Everyone, look how awesome I am. Moment of silence. Just kidding. But seriously, look at that leg. So the only issue that you could have here is eventually you're holding so much weight, it starts to, tip you over. And as you can see how small my upper body is, I don't have that problem. But all you have to do there is anchor your feet. So there's never going to be any limit on the amount of load that you can do there, where you might run into that even doing a cable. And again, machines, lots of times with the machines, actually having the machine makes it tougher to be lined up right. And basically it's this huge, giant, expensive piece of crap that, again, this little $25 thing could do better. So if you want a bigger, use weight. If you want the best exercise, this is what I think it is for all those points. And again, one of the biggest things being low barrier to entry. So there you go. You have no reason not to have a 8-pack gloriously shimmering in the sun after watching this video. Important questions. Have you been told you look like a buff version of Tyler from Dude Perfect? So I'm old, right? So the whole first time I was starting to get this, people kept saying, like, people would just write Tyler in my comments. This is like a couple years ago. And people would write like Dude Perfect. And I was like, is this people like making fun of me in some way? I don't understand because I'm old. I had no idea who any of these people were or what this was. And so finally I did the thing that old people don't do, and I make fun of other people for not doing it. I was like, oh yeah, internet. Tyler, Dude Perfect. So lo and behold, this guy's doing better than I am on YouTube. His page has like a bajillion. It's kind of a bad picture, but this is him. So these are the people I get told I look like the most. This is probably in order. So I just thought we'd have a little game here. Do I look like this guy? He's kind of fuzzy. So you guys, let's see what face he's making. He kind of has a blank expression on his face. I'm good at that. How do I look? All right. I get Ryan Reynolds, and I'm just going to say this is a good-looking dude. So when I hear that one, I'm like, yeah, all right. He just doesn't have, we just got to do one here. There we go. I got red in my beard. He has probably a beard picture somewhere. All right, what do you guys think? Wait, what's he got? Teethy smile? I'm not good at that one. What do you guys think? And then this is Maroon 5 lead singer. I can't remember his name right now. But I get this guy because he's kind of got that absent look on his face. I got that one. I used to hear this one a lot. I probably used to hear that one the most, but not as much anymore. Maybe it's because he's old too and kids don't know who he is anymore. So yes, I've gotten that. So I don't know why I put this up. This is of no value to anybody, but tell me who I look like below in the comments. That was the question. I'm moving on. Done with that one. Important stuff. What are your thoughts on an inverted leg press? Short answer. An inverted leg press is a poopy leg press, just turned on its side. So I've done a lot of content on this one before, but for people new here, first off, I know it's blasphemy whenever we look back at old pictures of like Arnold. First off, is this awesome? Yeah, it's awesome. Do I think this is cool? Yes, because Arnold is doing that. What is Arnold trying to train here? If he's trying, now I say it's a poopy leg press, it's poopy because it doesn't create as many options as a good leg press. So a good leg press will just create more options that you can do whatever you want training. A poopy leg press will create only one option. And the only option here is basically, just imagine, this is good that this picture was vertical, so I just left it on its side. But obviously everyone doesn't know that the real life picture is turned this way, which I'll have in the next slide. But what is the angle that we have here? So here's the back pad, and here's the sled. So we have a 90-degree angle here. So this angle, now again, the angle of the foot pad does some other stuff as well too. But this angle here really is one of the biggest things, and like I said, I'll talk about that maybe a little bit with quads and stuff as well, but that angle is the #1 thing that will determine what runs out first, because we have 3 joints going through flexion and extension here, hip, knee, ankle, and so whatever runs out first is the end of it, because this is a true closed chained exercise if you actually understand what a real closed chain is, which almost nobody does. And so what does this angle do? It closes your hip really darn fast. So if your goal is to get to full hip flexion as fast as possible and train that position, then vertical leg presses are fine. They're a good option. So who would want that? Someone that wants to fully lengthen their glute. And again, I kind of started that this is a poopy leg press. It's poopy because it has limited options. If your only goal is to train full hip flexion, then it's fine in accomplishing the goal. I'm guessing Arnold might have been trying to train his quads, but he's got almost 90 degrees left there. So if you're gonna train your quads and you're gonna do a pressing motion, I would think you'd want something that creates the option, maybe, so here's your knee, to get your leg down here and your foot down here. And what does that do then? Closes that angle. So you get more knee flexion. And if you have big old calves and hams, that might be where you end up full range of motion at the knee, near full range of motion, relatively speaking, for the quad. So what do we really want? Let's go to the next one. So we turn this here back on its side. This one's kind of sketchy, but if we want a leg press, we want a leg press that does this. Whoops. we want a leg press that does this. So here's that same one, 90-degree angle, but we want something that ideally has an adjustable back pad or more open back pad. So basically, the more open the back pad, as everything's kind of folding down, so you can see when he stops here, he's still got a lot of range of motion here. Now again, you can do some stuff with the feet, which I won't get into too much for this video, but if you have a little bit of a different pad angle here, or you're using a heel elevation, or you've got really mobile hips, then obviously you could slide them lower. The lower you slide, the quicker that knee joint's gonna close up as well too. But other things being the same, if the back pad is further back, you have further down to go before your hips run out, assuming full hip flexion might be the limiting factor, before your knees, stop. So if you have this back pad is more angled back, this is a larger than 90-degree angle, you'll be able to go deeper and get more knee flexion before you run into hip flexion. And then the ideal, if the goal is quads, people have probably seen me do the sissy leg press variation, but if I have I've had an angled back pad that goes back a little bit, and I put my feet very low, that combination can actually lead you getting to full knee flexion before you get to full hip flexion, and that's why I think that's the best one overall for quads. I got one more question. Oh yeah, let's get that off of there. So, what's the relationship between cutting and losing muscle? And this is my favorite part. How do I avoid, so we're trying to avoid losing muscle and aggressively cutting. So when I have people doing these two things, these things basically are opposite. This is kind of when people say, like I talk to normal people, like, what's your training goal? Yeah, so I want to get huge and I want to get shredded. Oh, you want to do both at the same time. This is the equivalent of like now everyone that's selling you like BS online that's like, learn how to be a millionaire, only working 4 hours a week. So if you see anybody selling you a way to aggressively cut while putting on muscle especially, or not losing muscle, it's kind of just BS, right? Because those things are opposite. This is why I generally tell people, do as best you can, kind of having not extremes, right? So again, if the goal is to obviously put on muscle, yeah, you want to be in a little bit surplus. Could you put on muscle being in a 5,000 calorie a day surplus? Yes, but you'll also put on layers of fat. So, and again, I know some people have put out some content that's saying, hey, you can actually do a pretty aggressive cut and you won't lose too much muscle, whatever it is. I can't think of any reason why someone would do an aggressive cut unless you're just poor planning or impatient, right? So my advice is, and I've cut 8 million times, and anybody that's been around me when I have done a show, I do the longest preps ever. And because I don't have great genetics for holding tissue in any way, shape, or form. Before I knew about vitamins, after I knew about vitamins, it doesn't make that big of a difference. You'd be surprised. I really had to be meticulous with my approach. And what I mean by that is I would have a very small to most moderate deficit and have that for a much longer period of time. And for me, that's one of the only ways that I could really drop body fat without losing a significant amount of muscle. And I would still lose muscle, right? So for me, it's again, people want, it's like you want to have your cake and you want to eat it too, right? So how do I do this? How do I eat stuff that's delicious and not get fat? Like this is stuff that people have been having BS marketing for decades about, just trying to sell people essentially lies. So, in reality, can you aggressively cut? You can, and if you have pretty good genetics, where you're on a lot amount of PEDs, even then genetics are probably the more important component. You can, go into a bigger 1,000+ calorie a day deficit, not lose too much muscle. But my advice is just go for a smaller amount for a longer period of time and be patient. And then what do you do from there? I mean, there's a whole lot of things, but all of your training variables, everything that goes in the category of stimulus, I slowly taper those down over the course of a deficit while keeping intensity, meaning the load you're using, and then even after that, proximity to failure, as high as possible, as long as possible. So the first thing that I pull down is anything that we would call intensifiers. So if I start to go into a deficit, I'm trying to lose body fat, and especially even if this was an aggressive, all this stuff I would say goes doubly true, I would drop any drop sets, supersets that aren't done for just time purposes, antagonist muscles or something, but anything that again goes in the category of intensifiers, drop sets, supersets, mechanical drop sets, anything you'd put in that category. From there, after that, I would slowly drop volume down. So again, I would have how much total volume, drop that down, and the things I would try and keep as high as possible is literally peak loads. So what do my top sets look like? I'm trying to keep the weights as heavy as possible, as safely as possible, as long as possible. And then one of the last variables I start to take down is proximity to failure. So I start to take a little bit further and a little bit further away from failure. And then when I'm actually getting people to the point where they're about to step on stage, then I might actually decrease loads, because there's a point where it's like, okay, we've been in a deficit for so long, we're so lean, if I keep at the same loads, then there's a high risk of injury and it's not really gaining any benefit at that point in time. So, maybe for someone it could be different from person to person, but in that 2 to 4 weeks out period of time, we're slowly starting to drop loads down. So if you're just the normal person is like, and again, I've done all the dumbest stuff in the world where it's like, I got spring break in 2 weeks, how do I get shredded? And it's like, you could just stop eating carbs, you know, whatever it is, which will for most people create a 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 calorie a day deficit, and you'll get leaner. But you'll look smaller, right? People are like, oh, I shrink right away. You're technically not losing muscle, but you're dropping all your glycogen storage. So you go from being full, you know, if you've ever done an aggressive cut and you've done it not super duper enhanced, here's the stages that go through. You drop all those carbs where most people drop the majority of their calories from. Right away overnight, you deflate. Not overnight, but right away within the first few days, if you really are, you deflate. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's happening. I'm way smaller. And because you've deflated, there's this compounding effect that occurs where because the muscles aren't pressing as hard as your skin, but you've also not lost a significant amount of body fat where you can actually tell and actually see that subcutaneous body fat being less actually makes your muscles look defined, where you look like you've gotten smaller and fatter at the same time. So that's where most people bail on the aggressive cuts. And this can happen literally within the first week or so. Aggressive cut, no carbs, shrink. Okay, this is part of the process, but everything's gonna be okay. I trust it. A couple more days. Oh my gosh, I'm just looking fatter. Then your lifts start to go down. Oh my gosh, my lifts are going down. And then they just go and smash Five Guys or sushi. Like, oh no, this is a bad idea. I just got to perma bulk forever. So you can do that. And if you stick with it, then eventually you'll kind of hit that tipping point, which is a little bit different for everybody where, okay, yeah, you're deflated, glycogen storages aren't as full, you're just kind of looking flat all the time. And when you're in a deficit for a long period of time, eventually, even with a moderate or not as aggressive cut, you'll look flat a lot. But you get over that hump and then you actually see the difference of what losing body fat looks like and you get a little leaner and all that's good. But you have much less of that happen if you do a moderate cut for a longer period of time. So if you're in a 250, 300 calorie a day deficit over a long period of time, you can keep glycogen storages relatively full. You don't have huge fluctuations in your water weight and the amount of glycogen in your muscle, the amount of water in your muscle. You don't look as deflated. And again, even though it's a little bit slow of a process, the body fat you lose actually starts to basically show kind of at a much more consistent rate as you go through it. So that's not the answer the internet wants to tell you, but in general, if you're trying to do two extremes at the same time, and this is not two extremes, this is an extreme and just kind of praying and holding on to what you've got, those would be the variables I manipulate. But the best advice I would be is just plan better, be more patient, and just do a small to moderate deficit because it'll work out much better for you in the long run. So that's it for this one. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff. If you like the format, let me know. If you've got some more questions, hit me down below. And as always, if you see a question you like while you're down there, you know, give it the little thumbs up deal, and those will be the ones that'll probably prioritize answering. Again, if you didn't in the beginning, do the YouTube thing, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And if you like this stuff, you know, you think, hey, this guy probably knows what he's doing with programming, maybe knows a thing or two about putting on muscle, check out my app. I got a link down below. It does everything you could ever want, has a bajillion programs on there, place to track, do check-ins, nutrition, logbook, exercise library, tons of educational stuff in there, tons more content. So like I said, get in there, try it. You can try it free for 7 days. That's a good deal. And there's some other stuff. Just go click down there and feed my kids. But anyway, appreciate you guys. Until the next one, peace.